You said US clients. Very, very intrigued to know how much are you making per month?
I've made around 10 lakhs per month.
Okay.
I've worked on a NASA app as well.
This is so cool. How did you find this project?
I understood that, hey, if I have to grow further and not depend on LinkedIn and wait for clients to come in, I have to also outreach. So for that, I created a...
So I thought, okay, let me go to Goa for like 2 weeks. But as soon as I saw Airbnb prices, the amount kind of made me back off.
So usually what I do is, every month I have like a calendar. I would make sure that I go through the finances.
Imagine you have 100 rupees. You just told me you're back from Vietnam. Now, in that 100 rupees, how did you allocate for different things in Vietnam?
My expense never crosses 30 to 40% of my income.
Imagine I'm a 9 to 5 person and I'm watching this video. What kind of blueprint would you give me so that I can start my freelancing journey and also kind of lead the life that I want?
Right, let me give you like a roadmap.
In today's episode, we have Shreya Mahendru, a freelancer and digital nomad. We'll dive deep into some of her smartest financial moves, exploring how she managed to travel to over 15 countries while earning a six-figure income every month from freelancing. She will also share her hacks and strategies on how you can start your own freelancing journey. Stay tuned as we break down these insights and learn how you can apply them to your own financial path.
Shreya, thank you so much for coming on this episode.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad.
So, let me start with this question I ask everyone. Are you financially independent?
Yes, I am. I consider myself financially independent.
Okay. So, tell me, how old are you right now and what is your net worth?
I just turned 31 yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday. Happy belated
Thank
wishes. You turned 31. So, you're like my age. And what is your net worth?
It's around 2 crore as of now.
Okay. So, I think just like me, a lot of viewers here now really want to know. Imagine I'm a 9 to 5 person and I'm watching this video. Now, what kind of blueprint would you give me so that I can start my freelancing journey and also kind of, travel and lead the life that I want?
Right. Let me give you like a roadmap. If you already know what your strengths are, then the next step is to understand again, the demand side. To understand where are the gaps where you can provide your strengths, your skills, creating a good LinkedIn profile, showing your work there, creating a portfolio. Try to make sure that you have something very clear to share with your client that I am a pro at this certain tool. Okay. So have that kit with you, which shows your skills, which shows your tools, which shows your experience, which shows some of your projects as well. So these 4 things should be ready. And then finally, when you are satisfied with it, you start with the outreach. Okay. Maybe day one clients will not come to you. You will have to start with the outreach.
Where can I do this outreach?
Cold emails is the most traditional way, but again, finding where your clients could be hanging out. For example, if you're a video editor, you try to find clients on YouTube, you comment on their videos, you try to get their emails and then reach out to them. And you could be working with solopreneurs also. I think that's very underrated. They do have money, they do have funds to start something, but they need somebody who can do some multitasking. So you can support them also. They are not smaller than companies in terms of how much pay they can give you.
Yeah, I think one example is thumbnail designers.
Yeah, it's very important. Such a
Yeah.
nice niche. So
It is, I think that role is severely underrated. The kind of creative thinking that one needs to possess. So I know so many thumbnail designers who will never take up full time.
exactly, and that's what you can do as well. Instead,
Yeah.
if you pitch yourself as a graphic designer, maybe it will not look that attractive. But if you are reaching out to a YouTuber, and with the strategy, an example of a YouTube, enhanced version of their own existing thumbnail, and tell them that I can do it for your future videos, and then also have some more backup. Let's say, some other clients that you've worked with have a nice presentable document or anything, and would show the client that you have done similar work in the past.
Okay. So like any other thing, like your starting couple of months is going to be tough. Would you advise them to not quit their job till that till you're confident?
I highly agree with that. So with your 9 to 5, even if you spend, let's say, 1 to 1.5 hours per day improving your profile, creating, let's say, socials or any other freelancing profiles that you're creating, making sure you know your niche, making sure you have a portfolio, that can take some time. After that, you can take some time when you see, okay, some clients are responding to me. Maybe I'm very close to closing some deals. That's when you can decide to maybe put your notice and then have some clients in place. You can be very transparent that you already have a 9 to 5 job, but you are available after a certain date. You can share your bandwidth and timelines with them.
I just mentioned you're a digital nomad and you're a freelancer, but what exactly is it that you do? And can you also dive into this kind of lifestyle that you're leading? Because a lot of people do dream about this, but not everyone are able to get up someday and then, venture into this.
So yes, along with freelancing, I of course have the flexibility to work from my laptop, and I just need a laptop and internet. So wherever I have those two things, I'm able to work from there. And I have to make sure that I am able to manage my time zones well. So considering that, where my clients are from, what my work hours committed to them are, based on that, I can schedule my travels and also work from those different locations.
So your clients are based out of everywhere in the world or just India?
As of now, I'm working with US clients, but I've worked with European clients, I've worked with Australian clients, I've worked with Southeast Asian clients as well.
Okay. You said US clients. Very, very intrigued to know how much are you making per month?
It is actually a variable number, but I'm able to make between 2.5, 3 lakhs to around 6 lakhs a month.
So minimum 3 lakhs?
Yes. 2.5 to 3 lakhs is like the minimum that I make sure that I make every month.
Okay. And it can go up to 6 lakhs?
Yes.
Is that the highest you've made so far?
No, I've made more as well. I've made around 10 lakhs per month.
Okay.
When I used to work for 3 clients in one go.
Okay.
That's what I've done. So at a stretch, when I knew that I was traveling to Europe, it was like a goal for me that I have to make a certain set of savings. So I thought, okay, let me give in 3 months and find and work with good quality clients. And back then I made around 10 lakhs per month for almost 3 months. And
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like engineering graduates starting salary of
Per year.
a year.
Yeah.
So you were making that per
Yes.
month for 3 months straight. So that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I do have I do have a couple of freelancing friends as well, right? So I think one of their biggest challenge is that they don't know how much money is coming per month. So even the kind of work that they're doing, it involves a laptop and internet. But I think because of that fear of not having enough money does not let them have that freedom of traveling, right? Because where will I fund is one of the main questions that they have. So how is it that you are balancing this? Like, how is it that you're managing?
I think I have a couple of, I don't know if they are secrets, but I have a couple of strategies with which I do it. One is slow travel, which means I don't frequently change my base. So it's usually once a month I change my base, not more frequent than that. And the second one is during freelancing, it's a really good strategy to have a retainer model with your existing clients. So that these are the two things I try to balance. So things are more in control, but I still have, a lot of flexibility as well.
You mentioned something very interesting, slow travel. I think that's one of the trend also that's happening. Everyone is preferring slow travel over your generic tourism kind of a travel, right? And before I started hosting these podcasts, so even I used to have a lot of free time where I knew that I can sit anywhere and do my work. So I thought, okay, let me go to Goa for like 2 weeks. But as soon as I saw Airbnb prices and also knowing like the kind of amount that I'll have to spend, because I may have to eat out all the time. I'm not a great cook, so I'll have to eat outside. That the amount kind of made me back off. I'm like, okay, it's not worth it if I have to spend so much just to be in Goa maybe, right? So when you say slow travel, like how do you manage the money aspect of it? Like, is there some allocated amount?
So whenever I am planning to spend, let's say, my next month at some destination, I would, of course, pick which destination I want to go to. I have that flexibility. Not to make you all jealous, but...
But you are. You're doing a bad job.
But yes, at least I'm able to say, okay, next month, if I want to have the budget of, let's say, 70,000 a month. So maybe a European country would not fit in that budget. Maybe a Southeast Asian city would fit in. And if I also want to see, okay, what's the vibe of that city? Do I want a fast city or do I want a slower city? What's my goal for next month? So based on that, I'm able to do some research and at least have a range. And if you live like a local, try to understand how the locals commute, how they what they eat, where they live, and how much rent do they pay. I think that gives you kind of a cost of living budget as well. So you're able to do that. And there are some platforms also where you can easily find this data.
Okay. So is there like a percentage of your monthly income that you allocate for this?
A lot of the times, it's not even from my revenue, it's from my investments that I can fund my
Oh.
travels. Yes, I think the additional money that goes in is the flights. But if you compare my cost of living, I think somebody who's living in Mumbai or Bangalore and spending, with a similar lifestyle, I spend a similar amount per month. But I need to perhaps, purchase some flight tickets, etc., to change my location. Otherwise, it's very, very similar around that. My expense never
Okay.
crosses 30 to 40% of my income.
So 30 to 40% of your monthly income, you're making sure only that much is being spent on my travel. Rest everything is saved,
Yes.
invested.
Correct. Yes.
Now, very excited about this. Now, imagine you have 100 rupees. Now, that 100 rupees, how would you spend on a particular travel scene? Like you just told me you're back from Vietnam.
Mhm.
Now, in that 100 rupees, how did you allocate for different things in Vietnam?
Right. So I was there for almost 3 to 4 weeks. Again, slower travel because that helps me save money as well. So let's say somebody who's traveling for 7 days would be spending on a hotel. I spent that for an entire month getting the similar studio apartment because it was on rent. So almost, let's say I was paying almost around 20,000 rupees for the rent. Indian rupees if I convert the
For 1
currency.
month?
Yes.
For 1 month, you paid 20,000 rupees.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there were some utilities, electricity and all that. Just like locals live, we pay electricity end of the month. So similar to that as well. So let's say, 20 rupees are gone on the rent now. Maybe
Out of
5,
100 rupees, you're
yes.
saying. Okay.
and 5 or 10 rupees more on utilities, on making sure I have good internet because that's the bare minimum I need for my work.
Yeah. So no compromise over there. There you go all
Yes.
out with. Okay.
Yeah.
Which
The
is
best
fair.
one,
Which is
the
fair.
best one.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. And then on food, I usually eat out or in the beginning 3 to 4 days. And after that, when I know, okay, what can I prepare at my place itself, I make sure that I have a kitchen because I can make, that hot pot bowls, etc. Some easy food, some easy to
Yeah.
cook food.
Also helps you save money, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, when you cook.
Groceries are always cheaper than getting food outside. Maybe 15 to 20 rupees there again.
Ha.
So a meal's worth is mostly like a week's groceries. So
Correct,
that's
yeah.
always better to do that.
Correct.
And then rest of it is mostly just experiences. Yeah.
So, what I understand or my biggest learning here is find a cheaper alternative of living because you're there for not just like 5 days or something, it's like 3 weeks or a month. So go for a cheaper accommodation, but at the same time, it needs to be like a safe location and all of that. And one more is try to cook yourself as much as you can.
Yeah.
But that does not mean you're being frugal or not experiencing the cuisine there, but have those days when you're cooking yourself. That will help you save considerable amount of money. Spoke about money. So now tell me, you told me that you invest and most of your expenses that you do is coming from these investments. So how have you allocated your money? What asset classes have you chosen?
Most of it is equity mutual funds, mostly.
Equity mutual fund.
Yes.
Okay. How much percentage?
I would say almost more than 60 to 70% at this point in time is in equity.
Okay. And
Yes.
these are all long-term
Yes.
investments.
Yes. So usually what I do is, every month I have like a calendar, 1 hour allocated every Friday, every month, first Friday. Okay. I would make sure that I go through the finances. So I have a sheet. I make sure that I have like a clear list of the places where my money is. And if I have to move from one place to the other, let's say, maybe I have more liquid and I have the bandwidth to put it as a lump sum investment, I will keep it ready for mutual funds, or I will keep it ready for, any other place where I'm investing in.
It could be vice versa also,
Yes.
right? Like something might be coming up and you need to spend. So you will figure out where you can liquidate, which equity mutual fund you can liquidate and make
Take
it
out from.
Huh.
Yes. And again, I think keeping things sorted as a freelancer, of course, there's one account that I have for getting my revenue. One account is for savings and investment. And the third account, bank account, is mostly for expenses. So I make sure that I have like these three
Ooh.
buckets. So the one for investments and savings is the one that gives me the best net banking, the best,
Huh.
online services, which
Huh.
I can ensure that gets connected with all of the platforms which I
Okay.
use for investments. And the one that I get, that the one that I have for revenue is always the one which is like zero balance, because as soon as it comes in, I'm like, okay, I can divide it. Yeah.
That's such a phenomenal money habit to have. And I think everyone watching this should implement that. Choose one day of a month where you are looking at your money. I think that's a great habit to have. Like, I know I will do this every Friday. First Friday of every month, I'm going to sit and see my money, how it's performing.
I think you're spending so much amount of your time into getting that income. So if you spend just 1 hour per month in making sure that you're keeping it at a good place, and
Yeah.
you're kind of making sure that it's being respected well.
Correct.
think
It's
it's
like
very
a relationship, right? If my money is going to work so hard for me, the least I can do is
Take
give
care
it
of it.
attention once a month at least and see what the hell is going on over there. So, yeah, thank you for this tip. It is really good. Where else have you allocated your money?
A little bit is also into P2P lending platforms, some platforms that I trust. So I've put like 10%, almost 10 to 15% there. And then a little bit of it, a very small percentage, I would say 5-7% is into fixed deposits. Yeah.
Any real estate investment?
Not yet, because for me, it doesn't make sense to invest into real estate, considering that my lifestyle is mostly, revolving in
Yeah.
different cities.
So what you mean to say is you don't intend to buy a house anytime soon because of the current lifestyle that
Yeah.
you're leading.
Exactly.
So that's why you've not ventured into it.
Yeah.
Currently, you are working for which client, and what is your designation there?
So currently, I'm working with a US firm. It's a healthcare IT company, which provides, software to hospitals and medical organizations.
Okay.
And I am the director of product there. So I have a team of product managers, developers, QA engineers, and all that. And my job is to ensure that, whatever roadmap we have of that product, that's well aligned with what the customers want.
Being a US director at a US healthcare company, I feel it's a phenomenal place to be in. Like, your career trajectory looks amazing for me. So that is the reason I want you to like take a step back and walk me through that career journey of, for example, your first job. What was your salary there, and how did you, kind of transition to this kind of a, if I may say, sexy lifestyle that you're leading now?
Yes. So how I started was I come from a background which is more sciences oriented, and mostly my parents wanted me to be either a teacher, a school teacher, because they are able to manage of course the house and also their job in their day. But I think I wanted something more, and I was almost
Were your parents very were they encouraging to build your own career, do what you want, or was it difficult in that area?
So for me, it was very difficult because, the kind of city I come from, it's
Where
a
you-
tier 2 city from Chandigarh.
Okay.
But my parents had very limited exposure about what the girls could do. And based off that, they wanted me to make sure that, I prioritize family as well. So according to them, going for a private job, doing MBA is not the ideal thing to do for girls at all. I did my master's in physics.
Okay.
And I never stepped out of my home city.
Okay, so it was
during
in a
that.
university in your home?
Yes.
The same
Home
city. Okay.
So I started with a small, company. I started as an intern there.
What company was this? Do you remember?
It was a small company back then. Now it has grown well. It was an IT software company.
Okay. And what was your salary?
It was 5,000 rupees a month.
Per month.
Yes.
Okay. Huh.
And I used to work weekends also.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So what they did was they gave us a check of 20,000 rupees to 4 people, and they said, divide it amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Yes. So it was a very small company.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, understandable. Like, if a company's, and that too, this was, I'm assuming, 10 years back, 10, 12
Almost.
years back.
Yes.
So I can't imagine this happening now, but yeah. Yeah. So first internship, 5,000 rupees per month. Okay. And then what did you
And then the same company offered me a job as well, and they paid me like 27,000 a month. So after that, I was able to switch jobs as well. That was kind of, at a personal level, it was very difficult to switch the jobs considering I had to move city to switch job, which
Which city did you move
I
to?
went to Noida after that.
Your
That was the
parents-
farthest I could go.
Like your parents they made peace with this.
No.
Okay. I think so relatable, right? Like I remember my parents not willing to send me to an engineering college outside of my city, which was Mangalore.
Mhm. Very similar.
But my brother was allowed to do that.
Exactly. Very, very similar.
Yeah. So you moved to Noida for your next job.
Yes.
And what was your role there? And what was your salary? What
So
company?
again, there also I was a consultant.
What salary were you drawing there?
It was around 50,000 rupees.
Okay.
Yes, because
Which year was this?
this was 2018, I think
Okay.
2017 or 18.
Okay.
Yes.
50,000, 2017, 18. And after that, what happened?
After that, I was able to get a job. That was again in my home city, which I did not really want to, take up. So that was again an IT consulting company, IT development company. But they wanted to extend their company overseas. So I was responsible to get new clients and set up everything in Singapore. And I had to do back and forth. And that was my first international travel too.
And your salary was?
That was around 1 lakh a month.
Okay.
Yes.
And which year was this?
This was 2018.
Okay.
And then after that, I started my own startup also. And then I was also working with a client, which back then I did not know is freelancing. But I picked a client and I started working with them directly on a project.
This is 2020.
Yes, correct.
So in your head, you were starting your own company. But in reality, you were freelancing as a consultant for another
Also,
company.
Yes, also.
Okay. So you're doing both parallel.
Both. Yes.
Got it. And then slowly you just started taking on more clients. And
Yeah. Then by word of mouth and, having a good LinkedIn profile also helps. Having a good portfolio also helps a lot. And then eventually I understood that, hey, if I have to grow further and not depend on LinkedIn and wait for clients to come in, I have to also outreach. So for that, I created a profile on Upwork also.
And any significant clients in your portfolio that you're really proud of?
A big company that was based out of Indonesia, XL Axiata, which is like, the Airtel of Indonesia. So I worked with them as a consultant and made big changes to their app to make sure that the conversion goes well. I've worked on that as a freelancer, as a consultant. And then I worked with on a NASA app as well. I worked with
NASA app. Please
Yes.
tell me what were you doing there?
So there was this client that was wanted, a very precise BMI calculator. And that was an app that needed to be made.
Huh.
So I helped, kind of break down, okay, how can we make this software and then involve in developers and then deliver that.
Okay. So were you working with NASA staff in the US?
No, I
Projects?
did not have to go there physically. It's all remote. It has been all remote.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you find this project?
This was through, an agency itself, but then they reached out and then we talked to them. They reached out to a lot of agencies. They put out a tender and then you apply and then you get on a call that you try to get them on a call and then you try to explain how would the solutioning look like. If they like you, then they get you on board.
Okay. So NASA will put out a job requirement.
Yes.
These agencies, they'll get in touch with the agencies that this is my requirement. These are the kind of profiles I'm looking for.
Correct.
And then they put out a job description on any platform like Upwork, etc. You as a freelancer will identify this. Your interview session might happen where you present what your solutions might be for the problems that you're facing. And if they like you, you're hired.
Correct.
And like this, the agencies make a team in India. And that's how you get to work with companies like NASA.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So now as a freelancer and also somebody who's traveling so much, your day might be looking very different from what I can imagine. So please tell me, how does a day or in fact, how does a week in your life look like?
So as a freelancer, you might imagine that, somebody would have a fancy setup with a nice computer and a nice monitor and keyboard and everything. I have a very basic laptop and my phone and just, a functioning internet that I work with. And usually my life fits into one backpack.
Okay.
So I travel with that. And my workstation looks different almost every day. So in the terms that I'm able to work from a cafe, I have worked from 30,000 above the sea. I've worked from a cruise. I've worked on land also.
Whoa.
So air, water, land. I've worked from all.
Yeah. Because typically you would think freelancers would have like a very fancy home office setup with like cool gadgets and books, or they may have like a home office. I've seen all of that, but my God, working in a cruise also sounds like really exciting.
I think I've traded off that thing
Yeah.
with this. So I'm just thankful. I think I shouldn't complain much. And I usually try to fix my work hours, let's say in the beginning of the week. So I work almost, let's say, around 10 to 14 hours a week as of now. So I keep my things very processized. I create a process for everything, and that frees up a lot of my time as well. So I can work on, let's say for my clients, I'm working for almost, I don't know, 14 hours a week.
So is there something that you do to kind of enjoy your travel and also make sure things are going fine with your team?
I'm, I think, a very good project manager of my own life. So I make sure that I am, planning all of my things in advance. If even if there is some unforeseen things coming up, I'm able to at least have some buffer time. So I try to, prepare things in advance itself. But yes, having things set on my calendar, having those lists, those boring things that people consider that, having a to-do list and all that. I do that.
Yeah, same. I wake up in the morning, my mind is so I mean, if somebody looks into my mind, they can just see wires being all entangled everywhere. So the only thing that helps me is writing down what I'm supposed to do, and then I feel free, and then only I can have my cup of chai.
Yes.
So I
it's
think I
so
can
important.
totally relate to that. Like, to-do list is like a safe. I think there's an app also called To-do.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I prefer writing it for some reason. Very old school that way. Yeah.
So having that plan set up for at least a week ahead, it gives you much more breathing space. It gives you that luxury of enjoying in the moment thing also.
Yeah.
Because the other things are sorted and you can enjoy. Let's say I'm sitting at a podcast right now. I can enjoy this. I can be at peace and not think about 100 other things running behind.
Yeah. Now, as a freelancer, again, I am 100% sure everything is not as smooth as it looks. There would be some challenges that you would face as a freelancer. So in your experience, has there been any instance or any top 3 things that you can remember that were a little negative and which, when you recollect it right now, it's bothering you even today?
I do remember one thing very clearly, not having a contract really, that payment is still pending.
What? How long has it been?
It has been 3 years now. I don't expect it to come.
What was the amount?
It was not a lot back then. Still, it was like, I think 1 to 1.5 lakh rupees.
That's a lot.
I would have done one country more.
Oh my God. Okay. So it's
Yeah.
just because you didn't have a contract.
Yes, correct.
They are just not paying you. Oh my God.
There's nothing in written, right? They think that they don't owe me, but of course, I've put in the hours, I've sent an invoice, but it's not acknowledged because there was no contract.
Is
So
there anything a freelancer can do? Okay, imagine somebody out there is watching this, also a freelancer, and they're going through this. Anything that can be done?
I think making sure that that is something that comes before even starting the contract is understanding what is their reputation online as well. So check with check with the client itself what is the date of payment that we will be moving forward with, instead of directly getting excited and starting the work. Make sure that you're setting the terms in the beginning. Make sure that you check some other people who have worked with this similar client, with this client itself. So make sure that you check their background also, just like they are checking your background.
Okay. This will help you not face the negative experiences that you would have faced in the past 4 years that you've been a freelancer.
Definitely. Yes, that. And it also makes you look more professional, because then they won't take you lightly.
True. You've been freelancing for 4 years now.
Yeah, almost 4 to 5
yeah.
years, yes.
Any expensive purchase that you've made so far?
I think it's mostly like my bread and butter, the laptop and phone itself. And apart from that, I spent money on getting a car for my parents.
Oh, oh, that's sweet. When did you get it for them?
It was earlier this year, beginning of this year itself.
They must be so proud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's back in my home city, of course. So my parents are using it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What has been your best financial investment so far?
For me, I think not financial, but the best investment is like my time and my decision making that I've improved, and my skills. And I think it's like people say this a lot, but it really does mean a lot when you respect your mind, your body, and you give it some resources to make sure that it's also making good decisions back for you.
I think you are the personification of investing in myself. Like it may sound so cliche, like, I invest in myself, but then I feel like you're a walking, talking example of that, because doing that has brought you here where you're financially independent, leading a lifestyle that so many of us millennials and Gen Z can only dream of. And you're managing it so well. So I think this is, I'm sure like you are a role model for a lot of people who are watching, especially like people in their early or late 20s.
I'm so glad.
I think this is such a phenomenal talk. I had a great time with you. Thank you so much for coming here. Any closing thoughts?
I think finally, if anybody watching this podcast, they are even close to thinking, this having this kind of lifestyle, just start. Don't compare your journey with anyone else. You can be slower, you can be faster. So just go ahead and start it.
Yeah. Shreya, this was, oh my God, it feels so weird to call you Shreya. And my name is Shreya. Shreya, this was such a great episode. So guys, thanks a lot for watching this video. If you're interested to come on to this next episode of 1% Life, fill the form which is in the description box below, and I'll see you in the next one.